you're gonna break into. On you.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero. It's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you listen, if you're doing all right, don't forget the show's being brought to you in part by Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. So basically, if you're in the United States or Canada and you're looking for a limo, and throw in the fact that you may want a really hot driver to drive you around in the limo, then you need to call Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. 202-351-7496 is how you get a hold of my girl. That's 202-351-7496. Cat's Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. Tell her Billy C sent you. But just remember, she's my girl. The show is also being brought to you in part by Camp Aaron Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That is Camp Aaron Tomkovich. 845-221-4099. 845-221-4099. Let Camp Aaron Tomkovich knock out your legal problem. 845-221-4099. The show is also being brought to you in part by my friends over at the Halftime Bar and Grill, Route 9, South Glens Falls. Check them out. You can call ahead, 518-792-4869. Great people all the time. Food is fantastic. Drink specials. Live entertainment on Friday and Saturday nights this time of year. Check it out, man. And by the way, if you like hot sauce on your wings, they got the Billy C hot sauce recipe. That's right. We do have a special. Listen, I'm a big hot sauce guy. And I invented my own hot sauce. And, well, it's the best on the planet. And if you want to taste it, only one guy has the recipe. And if he gives it up, we got to shoot him. So that's Craig. So ask Craig to whip you up some Billy C hot sauce. and check out their wings. 518-792-4869, Halftime Bar and Grill. And the show is also being brought to you by Ringside, the best in boxing equipment. Check them out, ringside.com. That's right, if you're a boxer, whether you're doing it for fitness, whether you're doing it for competition, whether you're a professional, even if you're a trainer, even if you own a gym, whenever you need boxing equipment, there's only one place to call. That's ringside.com. Definitely give them a shout. Tell them Billy C sent you. And if you are a gym owner or a trainer and you're looking for big quantities of stuff, drop me an email, Billy at talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com, and I will hook you up with even bigger discounts than the normal Billy C discount at ringside.com. Got to give my man Hanging Fire good morning to you too, my man. And well, the chat room's been kind of, in the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of dead. But, this time of year, it's going to come back. It seems that in the winter time, people don't want to do whatever they do in the summertime because maybe it's too cold. So if you do listen to the show on the radio or on Fight Now Television or LDL TV, or you have if you're cool enough to be a premium podcast subscriber, check it out, man. Set your alarm early one day and come on in and check out the chat room. Give us your thoughts. We'll bring you on air, make you part of the show, all that happy stuff. And speaking of which, do me a favor, will you please? Could you go and vote? We this is a serious vote. Usually the votes are just for fun and stuff. Our poll questions up on BillyCBoxing.com, but this is a serious one, and it's really going to decide the fate of when we broadcast. So do yourself a favor. If you feel strongly about it, and even if you're a premium podcast subscriber, we got one email from somebody. I think it was an email, and they were like, "Listen, I'm a premium podcast subscriber, but I like it to go early so I have enough time to get the show the same day." He doesn't want to listen to the show a day behind, so he voted to keep it at the same point. Right now, I think it's tied. I think keeping it where it is tied with another time. So go cast your vote, please. www.BillyCBoxing.com. Today, coming up in a little bit, we got Alex Papali. Now, he was kind enough. Well, he had no choice. He let on that he woke up a little early. So what do? I call his ass and put him on the show on Monday. We had some fun, and we talked about the Mike Tyson and New Zealand thing. And some other stuff, but he's going to be back. He's back. That's right, today, because we're going to be doing the Blast from the Past segment that Alex and myself like to do. And this week's Blast from the Past is going to be former world heavyweight champion and boxing Hall of Famer Gene Tunney. So we'll be talking about that. Now, yes, he's a heavyweight, and no, we're not talking to Tony Treem about him, only because Tony's taking care of some stuff, and we'll be back hopefully next week. And Tony and I will continue with our heavyweight spotlight. Don't you worry. Tony's going nowheres. He is a very important part of the show as part of the heavyweight spotlight and way more. So you'll be seeing and hearing a lot more Tony as time goes on, especially when we're neighbors, But anyway, you keep that to yourself. Don't tell anybody. But especially not Tony. He's now that he's on the board of his neighborhood, trying to keep the bad element out. I'm sure that they're not going to be happy when I move in. But anyway, hey, speaking of segments, and speaking of Las Vegas, we got a new segment we're going to air tomorrow. That's right, tomorrow. Check it out on Thursday. Now, I don't know if it's going to always air on Thursdays or not, but tomorrow we're going to do it only because of scheduling. Now, he's been on the show and he did the. He gave us that audio clip of Joe Louis knocking out Max Schmeling in the second fight at Yankee Stadium. It was great stuff. I've known Steve a lot for a long time. He worked with Mike Tyson, and I worked with him with another fighter, with Kevin Rooney. And we finally had met, and we've known each other almost 20 years, and we finally had met face to face recently when I was in Las Vegas. And a lot of plans with the two of us, and one of them is, as you know, I think I mentioned, he's involved with the Hall of Fame, the Boxing Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. There's a new Boxing Hall of Fame, which I think is going to become the Boxing Hall of Fame, worldwide, that people are going to want to get into in terms of boxing, the boxers themselves. And we're going to be kicking off a new segment. It's going to be presented by Billy C. Boxing and the Boxing Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. Now it's going to be called In the Ring with Billy C. and Steve Lott. And we're going to kick that off tomorrow. So check it out. It's going to be an introduction thing tomorrow. We're going to talk about a couple issues and the types of things we're going to talk about on a weekly basis are going to be some of the great old-time fights and putting them in perspective with the modern fighters and where they were stacked up, and some great stuff. And we're going to take advantage of Steve's extensive background in watching these old video clips. Obviously, he's been watching these boxing films for over 30 years and has analyzed them and has picked up a lot of stuff that I think you're going to find interesting. So we're going to be kicking that one off tomorrow. So always trying to keep it fresh here on the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. So make sure you check that one out. So anyway, like we like to do every day, we read some emails. I got several of them here that we need to get out of the way and get my viewers and listeners' thoughts across. First, Biask. B-E-Ask2. B-Ask2? I don't know. Says, awesome show, Billy C. Thanks, B-Ask2. I think it's pretty awesome myself. We kind of love it, and we've been doing it for 10 years. Glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully you will be tuning in on a regular basis. We love the long-time listeners. And by the way, don't forget about becoming a premium podcast subscriber. That's right. Yeah, and any of you that are not premium podcast subscribers and listen to the show, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for, man. $15 a year, and that includes all these specials. And some of this stuff, I'm telling you right now, and I'm not kidding you, that some of this stuff is not going to be available anymore on some of these other avenues that we have in play right now. I say in play. I could say in place, but I'm saying in play. It's going to be available through podcast only in the near future. That's all I'm saying. Now, you're going to be able to see the show and all the other stuff through other vehicles, but only maybe one or maybe two. Listen, we have it priced very affordably. It turns out to be less than $1.25 a month. And even if you are saying to yourself, well, I'm only going to listen, I only like to listen once a week, or I only have time to listen once a week, good. It's still worth it. And I guarantee you one thing, just like everybody else always says, I guarantee it. If you start listening to the show, give us 1 week, listen to 5 shows in a row, and if you're not hooked on it, really, if you don't love the show, drop me an email. Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com, and I'll send you a prize just for not liking it. How about that? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you, hey, Bafongu. No. Oh, I can't say that.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Roselli Enterprises. Roselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Roselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RoselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the ideal computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at iboboxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C. dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching the replay on LDL TV. Give a shout out to my man John and the rest of his top-notch staff over there at LDL TV down in the beautiful Sunshine State. That's Florida, for any of you guys that don't know that. And as usual, I want to give my puppy dog look to my girl Dawn. That's right. And she's been officially labeled my real dream girl. I got an email from one of the listeners that said, who the hell is your dream girl, man? You know, you talk about this one, you talk about that one, you talk about this. No, it's Dawn. It's Dawn. So, anyway. Sky Ace says, Billy C., I'm going to be honest with you. Uh-oh. Usually, when they start off with, I'm going to be honest with you, it's like, you suck, man. No, you know, but no, I guess not. He says, I don't want to see Mayweather versus Pacquiao anymore. I think this fight is way past its time. I'd rather see Canelo and Mayweather. I think it sucks that Andre Ward is very underrated. If I was Ward, I would be calling Bob Arum or Oscar De La Hoya to fix this problem. Hint, hint, hint. Ward should switch promotion companies very soon. My final thought, Marvin Hagler versus Floyd Mayweather. Who wins this fight? Wow. Well, let me address all of them. First and foremost, I agree with you, man, with the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight. And to tell you the truth, I think a lot of people also agree with you. You know, I think that you know, when push comes to shove, we are going to all watch it if it comes out, and I think it'll do very well. You know, money-wise, Livegate, pay-per-views, all that kind of stuff. But I definitely agree with you that it has lost its luster. You know, now if Manny Pacquiao comes back and has a fantastic performance and knocks out Juan Manuel Marquez, I'm not saying he will, but if he does, then maybe that rekindles the interest. You know, I don't think that Floyd is going to rush back into the ring. I do also agree with you that the more I think of it now, I think if you would have asked me this question, you know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, I don't know. Especially if you would have asked me this question after the Josito Lopez and Saul Canelo Alvarez fight, I probably wouldn't have said what I'm going to say now. But as I've had time to, you know, let this, you know, ferment, as you know, Bob Arum would say. Or no, I'm sorry. He uses the word marinate. I'm going to say ferment. So forget it. I'm not giving him any credit. It's my own. It's ferment. Yeah, he says marinate. I'm saying ferment. But as it had some time to sit around, I agree. I think I do want to see Floyd and Canelo. The only thing about Canelo and Floyd, which is a true statement, is that Canelo is a lot bigger than Floyd. Now we could argue and say, well, everybody wants to see Martinez fight Floyd, and he's a middleweight, and Canelo's only a junior middle. Yeah, but it's a little different because the truth of the matter is Sergio Martinez is really only a junior middleweight. He moved up in middleweight because he had to get the fight. And Canelo is only 22 years old, 21 years old. His days at junior middleweight are numbered. Maybe they are trying to secure a fight with Floyd now because they know that they can't hang around that division much longer. But I agree. I like that matchup. As far as Andre Ward and switching promoters, I think that that might be very advantageous to Andre Ward to get with one of those top two guys you mentioned, Oscar De La Hoya, and of course Top Rank. I'm just not sure that Andre Ward is that kind of a guy. His character, meaning that he seems like a stand-up guy, a guy of his word, a man of his word, someone that lives up to his obligations, his contractual agreements. And obviously, he's under contract with Goose and Tudor. He's a guy that is going against the odds, similar to Sergio Martinez at this stage. And they're developing a name based on their performances in the ring, the way they used to do in boxing. I think we're heading towards a positive change in our sport, and hopefully it all comes to fruition, like I'm saying, because I think that I have this feeling that it's coming back the way we want it to. When you really look at all the fights we've seen over the last year or two, there has been some pretty good matchups and significant matchups too. So anyway, now as far as the big question, Marvin Hagler versus Floyd Mayweather Jr., who wins this fight? The Mayweather fans are going to get mad at me, but Marvin Hagler wins this fight, and I'll tell you why. Floyd Mayweather, although he's got a great defense and he's got his hand speed and everything else, and you could argue with me and say, well, look what Sugar Ray did. Sugar Ray Leonard beat Marvin Hagler. That's debatable. I think that fight was a draw, no matter how you slice it. But the problem with that fight, and this is the problem with these dream matchups. You just never. You can't say that Floyd would fight the guy that fought Sugar Ray Leonard, that Marvin Hagler, that night. I've made this statement a lot of times about Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Marvelous Marvin Hagler's biggest, opponent, his biggest negative about him, his biggest flaw was Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler was his own worst enemy. Marvin Hagler wanted to do things, his own way all the time, which I don't have a problem with. But he chose to fight Sugar Ray Leonard that particular night the worst possible way he could have. He tried to outbox a boxer. I think that if he would have fought with the same game plan that he fought Tommy the Hitman Hearns in that epic 3-round battle, I think Marvin Hagler knocks out Sugar Ray Leonard just like Tommy Hearns went to sleep. With that said, if that same aggressive fighter attacked Floyd Mayweather, and let's keep in mind that Floyd Mayweather is a lot smaller than Marvin Hagler, but if Marvelous Marvin attacked Floyd Mayweather the way he attacked Tommy Hearns, all the defense in the world wouldn't protect Floyd against Marvin. But you can argue with me and say, well, if the same Hagler that stepped into the ring with Sugar Ray Leonard and was trying to outbox him and trying to box him from the wrong stance and letting Sugar Ray Leonard, or in this case Floyd Mayweather, steal rounds at the last 20, 30 seconds, then the outcome could very well be the same as what he let happen with Sugar Ray Leonard happen. So, if you take the whole body of work of Marvelous Marvin and you put him up against a whole body of work against Floyd Mayweather, I got my money on Marvin Hagler. And that's a great matchup, and it's also a great reason why, in the large picture of the all-time, greats, the historical fights and fighters that we have in the sport, that's why, Floyd Mayweather does not fit in, to those top guys. Today's guys, of course, but, as early previously, as going back as soon, I guess, or as early the way you want to put it, as Marvin Hagler, in other words, going back 20 years, Hagler would have given him a go. Even Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, that whole group of guys, Roberto Duran. Come on. You put Floyd Mayweather in against those guys, and Floyd Mayweather doesn't have an O anymore, man, just like they didn't. Listen, we could argue this point forever, but the truth is this. When you look at that era, and and you're just hypothetically looking at it, and you looked at the fact that these guys fought each other multiple times, and had all that talent that they were fighting from and being forced to fight against, and they still come out with a couple of losses and Hall of Fame careers and stuff. You just are not going to be able to make that same argument for Floyd. Even the biggest Floyd fans are going to someday have to come to reality and face the facts that the talent pool just wasn't available to Floyd. Now, that's not Floyd's fault, but you can't assume that the guy, you can't assume. I know Dax Khan says that Lennox Lewis was one of the top 10 heavyweights of all time, and although that's his opinion, I'm not going to fault Lennox Lewis for not having some great heavyweights to fight during his era. But how do you put him? How do you make a statement like that when you don't, in the back of your mind, think about that? When you're listing a fighter as an all-time great, unfortunately, when you're listing him as a top fighter or an all-time great, you can only judge him based on who he fought during his era and who was available to him, to determine whether he was a good champion or not. But the ranking of those all-time greats, at some point you have to put in that mix the level of opposition that they fought, that they couldn't control, but nonetheless that they fought and beat. My money's on Marvin Hagler in that one. He also says, Billy C., I was wondering what your thoughts on Prince Hassim Hamed are. What did you think about this fighter? Do you think he was a legend or a joke? Do you think he could school Nonito Donaire? That's a good question about Prince Nassim Hamed. He was a very awkward fighter, and he did rub me the wrong way when, as he started to come, when he busted onto the scene and was a top fighter for all those years. And I will admit that I was, happy when he lost. But a couple of things about Prince Hassim Hamed that I think we need to keep in mind is, number one, his awkwardness is what made him so good. Number two, he kind of knew when to say when. I mean, he got out of it. He didn't linger on too much. And I just think it was an awkward style. I think he was a good promotional guy. So, I mean, with all that said, I think that he should be considered a legend. I think that he is a Hall of Fame fighter, and I think he deserves the credit. So, yes, I like him. Do I think he would have schooled Nonito Donaire? Tough fight to call. I can't make a educated decision on Nonito Donaire yet because I just think there's too many unanswered questions about Nonito Donaire. I think his next fight that's coming up this weekend might explain where he sits, or might prove where Donaire sits in the big scopes, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, listen, I got to take a break. When I come back, I got a couple of more emails. I got some boxing news. Don't forget, coming up in a little bit, we got Alice Papali and the Blast from the Past, and a whole bunch more. We'll be right back.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretch of that man, I would think.
You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York and the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell him Billy C sent ya.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C, the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C, damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. My fellow Americans, good evening. Welcome back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It's great to be here discussing the sweet science with everybody. I love boxing. I love talking boxing. It's what I do.
Bill.
Wait, what?
Bill.
Why are you interrupting me? What?
Wrong.
What's the problem?
Billy,
what?
C.
I did not have...
We're gonna have to ask you.
Wrong speech. What do you
leave.
mean wrong, Billy C? What's going on here? Fine, I'll go. I just wanted to talk some boxing on TPSradio.net. That's all I wanted to do. I don't need your damn show. I'll get my own talking wrestling with the other Billy C. Yeah, that sounds good. I've always been a Hulkamaniac anyway.
Broadcasting live, brother. Welcome back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. on the mighty TPSradio.net, brother. What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And welcome the Fight Now audience just joining us like they do every day, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you don't have Fight Now on your sports channel lineup, you need to call your local television provider and tell them that you want Fight Now right now. That's it. Pick up the phone and call them. Tell them I want Fight Now right now. For all information about the channel, you can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. That's right. That's where you can find it. We're reading some emails. I'm getting some comments by my man Hanging Fire in the chat room. He's going to the Nonito Donaire fight in California this weekend, and it ought to be a good one. And we're talking about the Rios and Alvarez fight. I mean the Alvarado fight. And that's going to be a good one, man. You know, I think Bam Bam Rios is actually going to be the smaller guy. Remember, he's moving up in weight, and Mike Alvarado has been at that weight class for a while. So it ought to be an interesting one. Ought to be interesting. Now, a couple days ago, the last show, we talked about Arturo Gatti and the fact that he was on the ballot for this year's International Boxing Hall of Fame inductions. Has not been inducted yet, but he's on the ballot. And, my question to a lot of people was, is this a Hall of Fame fighter? And we were talking about that a lot on the show. And I got several emails about it. EQX says Gotti is not a Hall of Fame fighter. He was very popular, but he's never mentioned at anyone's top 10. every fight was a blood and guts fight because he wasn't really that good or skilled. And also, how come no one speaks about Gotti's personal life? We vilify certain people like Floyd Mayweather, but Gotti's reckless, abusive behavior is conveniently swept under the rug. First of all, the question of Hall of Fame fighter is a matter of opinion, and it's going to be up to the voters. Now, I had said what my opinion was. A Hall of Fame fighter or a Hall of Famer for any sport that you participate in on a professional level, it should be based on skill, of course, and also the impact that athlete made on his sport. Sometimes the best skilled fighters don't necessarily mean they're Hall of Fame. The best skilled football players doesn't necessarily mean they're Hall of Famers. Maybe they have the best skill. They throw the fastest pitch in baseball, but they can't throw a strike. Or they can hit the ball the furthest, but it doesn't stay fair. Or you could have a great quarterback in football that just is not blessed with good receivers, so he zips the ball in time and time again, and the receiver drops it. And his stats don't show it, but does that mean it's his fault? With that said, my opinion is that Arturo Gatti was an exciting fighter, changed the sport, made an impact on the sport of boxing. No, he wasn't the best skilled, but neither was Rocky Marciano, and he's a Hall of Famer. Neither was, the Raging Bull. And I don't mean Vic Darcinian. I'm talking about Jake LaMotta, and he's a Hall of Famer. They made an impact on the sport. Every fight is a blood and guts fight. That's the impact. Not that he took a beating, but the impact that he made on the sport of boxing and its fans. When people left an Arturo Gatti fight, they were like, man. I'll never forget meeting Gotti for the first time. It was at a fight. I actually had a fighter on one of the cards. It was in New Jersey. And I met him, and, he wasn't a very big guy at all. And, he was in street clothes, a dungaree jacket. I mean, he was the coolest guy to really meet. And little guy. And to imagine the fights he was in. And when I see, like, Mickey Ward out and about, Mickey isn't a monster, but he's bigger than Gotti was in street clothes, for sure. I'm looking at a Gotti Ward picture right now here in my studio that Mickey Ward gave to me. And it's actually him landing a good shot. And even in this photo, it looks like he's much bigger than Gotti. So, as far as his personal life being swept under the rug, that's a good point. I mean, I think if we look at the latter, the last part of his life, the ending, that was dragged through the mire. Him being drunk, then getting into a fight. You can't say that was swept under the rug. And if anybody was, if anyone didn't know about some of the actions of Arturo Gatti, they certainly learned it during that murder trial. I'm not so sure that it was all swept under the rug as much as you say. You bring up EQ. Actually, you open this door and you bring up Floyd Mayweather, and let's be real about Floyd. There's been a lot of stuff swept under the rug about Floyd Mayweather. This guy has been let off the hook a million times. This guy gets away with way more things that you or I could get away with. So, I don't want to hear the bleeding heart comments about poor Floyd Mayweather. There is no poor Floyd Mayweather, in my opinion. He deserves everything he gets and more. He brings it upon himself. Now, maybe he's changed, but I don't think that they swept a lot of the Gotti stuff under the rug. I actually think they've swept more Mayweather stuff under the rug than they have with Gotti. Unfortunately for Floyd, he's involved in a time where technology. I mean, he beats up a 19-year-old security guard or threatens him or drives through the barrier or opens up the gate himself or does all those illegal things that he likes to do, and it's on the internet 10 seconds later. Hawk says Gotti wasn't an A-level fighter, but he was one of the most exciting and famous boxers of his era. He was like a modern-day Rocky. My friends that didn't even follow boxing knew who Gotti was and liked to watch his fights, even if they couldn't name 6 of the belt holders. And Gotti was one of the most famous, popular boxers of his era. I don't know, he says, why you have a problem with the word popular, because that's what will probably get Gotti in the Hall of Fame. A boring, unknown B-level boxer won't make it into the Hall of Fame. He's responding to me saying that, his popularity will get him in. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like just because a fighter is well known, it gets him, a little extra. And that falls into play, like if you say, oh, okay, so in other words, a fighter that signs with a promoter that happens to promote him and make him a popular figure, solidifies his spot in the Hall of Fame. What about the guy who doesn't have it? What about the guy who's not as popular, who's better, and doesn't get in or doesn't get that spot because of the popularity? That's all I meant. I think that being popular and being successful at the gate, at the draw, the interest level, I think that's all part of it. And I just don't like the wording of popular. That's what I was saying when we were talking about that. He goes on to say, I think Gotti is a Hall of Famer because he was one of the most famous fighters of his era. It's called the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of the Elite. Exactly, and I agree with Hawk here. He says, I think Gotti was a little better than Mayorga and far more popular, just like some very popular singers out there aren't the world's best, but they are popular because they put on a great show. I'm sure your boy Mayweather hopes Gotti makes it, so he'll brag about beating another Hall of Famer, even if Gotti just made it on popularity and wasn't prime. Listen, I don't want a fighter to get in on popularity. I want him to get in on a combination of his skills, and either he has elite skills. And then again, what's elite skills? If you're fighting marginal opposition, how can your skills be considered elite? The only way to become elite is if you fight elite fighters and beat them and dominate them. But I think the impact that a fighter makes will get him into the Hall of Fame. Impact that a fighter makes on the sport. And with that said, whether I like Floyd Mayweather or not, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. He's definitely made an impact on boxing. Whether you think it's good or bad, he made an impact. Mike Tyson got knocked out. This is Hawk saying, Mike Tyson got knocked out by a 24-year-old journeyman. What kind of elite boxer is shot at 24? And Mike never beat an elite boxer after that. Tyson was stopped 5 times, and 3 of them were by knockout. Gotti was also stopped 5 times, but never by knockout, only TKO. So one could argue that Mike wasn't really elite either, but no doubt Tyson and Gotti were famous, if not elite. Mike Tyson clearly changed the sport of boxing and made an impact on it. As far as an elite fighter, I disagree with Hawk. I do think that Mike Tyson was an elite fighter, but in the sport of boxing, and more than any other, but just like any other professional sport, the timeline is very short. It's a short-lived career. It's a young man's sport. Sports are a young man or young woman's games. I mean, that's the way it is. Mike Tyson, there was a lot of things contributing to his loss to Buster Douglas. I agree that it was a journeyman fighter. It was clearly the biggest upset in the sport of boxing, in my opinion. But it doesn't change my opinion on Mike Tyson. Was Arturo Gotti like Mike Tyson? No, he wasn't. Mike Tyson was far more skilled than Arturo Gotti as far as pure boxing skill. When did you see Gotti move his head at all? Mike Tyson in his early days had great head movement. Remember something: when Mike Tyson split with Kevin Rooney, and a lot of the foundation that Cus D'Amato instilled in Tyson, and also sprinkle in the fact that this guy was a gazillionaire at that age. It all equals why he had the downfall. And, when you become that unbeatable and that, financially, at the time, financially secure, all of a sudden things aren't looking the way they used to. And you start believing all the rah-rah guys are all around you and all of that. And maybe you don't train as hard and all those things. So I don't know if it's a good comparison. But anyway, thanks for the email. The J Dill says Gotti is not a Hall of Famer. If that's the case, put Ricardo Mayorga in there, and trust me, all his fights are entertaining as well. Totally different scenario, J Dill. I mean, Ricardo Mayorga, they might have been exciting, they might have been entertaining, but he's no way a Hall of Famer. Not based on popularity, not based on skill, not based on making an impact on the sport. None of that. I don't think it's fair to compare Arturo Gotti to Ricardo Mayorga. I think Arturo Gotti, again, he's not an elite fighter. He's not a polished fighter. He's not going to be. If you look up the sweet science definition, you're not going to see a picture of Arturo Gotti in there. But I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he is. I mean, that's my opinion. Biggerback says Gotti should be rewarded for his exciting fights that he did have. Let me ask you this: who deserves it more to be in the Hall of Fame, Ivan Calderon or Arturo Gotti? It's pretty obvious. Gotti is proof that the casual boxing fans couldn't care less about the O. He always bounces back from a loss and doesn't let losses affect him. We wish all boxers had the same mental toughness. Some of today's fighters who have mental toughness are Miguel Cotto, Rosado, Vasquez Jr., Carl Froch, Molina, and Juan Manuel Marquez. Great point, Biggerback. I agree with everything he just said, and he's so right. Look at Ivan Calderon. Now, granted, he's at the end of his career right now, and especially coming off another loss this past weekend. But in terms of skill set, you're talking apples and oranges. I mean, Ivan Calderon possessed way more skill than Arturo Gotti ever dreamed of in his best day. So great point. That was a great one. Biggerback comes through with the HR, man. That's home run for you guys. But anyway, speaking of home run, I'm good friends with Randy St. Clair, who's a pitching coach for the Florida Marlins, and I was over his house yesterday doing some stuff, and his wife breaks out some lunch, says, here's some lunch, and venison. Now, I'm not a big, I'm a fat bastard, but I'm a picky eater. If you've ever been anywhere with me, or if you know me, you see me get the same stuff. Now, I will admit, I don't eat the best stuff for you. One of my favorite foods on the planet is a cheeseburger, or a pizza, So, I'm not exactly the poster child for eating right and healthy. However, I'm also not a big game eater. I don't really eat stuff that's running around outside. Stuff that I could hit with my car. I really don't try to eat. But let me tell you, and Liz is like, oh, go ahead. Oh no, you gotta have it. You gotta have it. I'm not hungry. I'm not this. And Randy's like, you don't want it, man. You don't want it. I said, you know what? Now, I've had their venison before, and I'm not a big venison eater. But let me tell you, this was so delicious, man. I'm sitting there eating, and I'm going, I'm like you know how like when you're eating something to be nice, and you want to chew it and then like chase it down with some water or whatever you're drinking really quick, and like swallow it whole, It's sort of like when you're a kid and somebody's forcing you to eat something. And so I'm waiting for that, So I cut a little piece and like put it in my mouth, and I'm start chewing it, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's pretty damn good, I'm like, And after a couple of pieces, I was like, I said, your guys' venison is the only venison I eat. I said, every time else I've ever tried it, it's always gamey and it just doesn't taste like this. I said, this tastes like a delicious flank steak or something, And it's like, it's the way it's butchered. He said, we cut it thin. You can't overcook it. You can't do this. You can't do that. Liz going, I didn't even marinate that. The last time you had it was marinated. So I put a little salt and pepper and fried it in a pan, man. And I was like, damn, stuff is pretty good. Anyway, I don't know why I shared that. I don't know where venison came. Maybe I'm like, going to hit a deer today with my car or something, Oh, man, I'm sorry. Hey, you mind if I take a chunk of your leg? But Antonio Tarver, the juicer, they upheld his ban. It was announced yesterday. The California State Athletic Commission voted from a 5-panel crew, 4-1 margin, to uphold the 1-year suspension that they handed to Antonio Tarver in June after it came back that he tested positive for drugs, for the steroid. They fined him $2,500. He made $1.1 million. Antonio Tarver is really being, doesn't it? Is it just me? I mean, I like Tarver. Does a fantastic job on Showtime. He really does. And I got to admit, I was never a fan of Antonio Tarver ever as a fighter. And I also am going to admit that the only Rocky movie I ever watched was the first one. I never bought into all the Rocky stuff, so I never watched him, as whoever he was in the Rocky movies. I might have seen clips of the other Rocky movies, but never sat and watched the whole thing. And, I just was never an Antonio Tarver fan. But the job that he does on Showtime, or used to do on Showtime, is just fantastic. And I started to like him in that role. Well, the stuff that's coming out now and the stuff that he's saying and all this stuff is the reason why I don't like this guy, and I wish he would just shut the F up. And, his career is over. His career was over before the fight, in my opinion. It's clearly over now. The thing that bothers me the most about some of his comments is that he says he denies it. He still denies it. And he says, we know that it's not true. My doctors know it's not true. I don't cheat. I am against this, blah, 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 blah. And, oh, by the way, he tested, both samples tested positive. So, I mean, listen, if you're going to say I unknowingly, got the substance in my system, that's one thing. I mean, that's the only thing he could say. Whether you believe him or not, that's another story. But that's the only thing he could say. And he doesn't even say that. He says he did not do it. Come on, man. I mean, if you rob a bank and they got you on video and you're sitting there on the stand saying I didn't do it, and they're showing the video and it's you and you're robbing a bank, I mean, at some point in time, either going to think you're totally insane or you're going to have to admit that you did something wrong. Antonio Tarver, and Showtime hasn't made a decision on him. And he doesn't know what his decision is on Showtime yet. He's waiting for them. They were waiting for this ban to go over. For him to continue saying he's innocent with all this proof, scientific proof that he's not, I think that makes it worse for him, in my opinion. I don't know. But his ban was upheld, and I'm all for it. They fined him $2,500, and the other day I was talking about the potential pension that we should set up for boxers, and I'm anti the WBC only because the WBC is setting up a pension, for their former champions, and I feel that there should be a boxers pension fund for all fighters, and I think that the criteria is that they have to hold a valid license for a professional. They have to be rated as a professional boxer for 4 years or more. And they have to have some minimal amount of professional fights to become eligible for whatever this pension would be. And then I think every fighter and every fighter that submits for the receipt to receive a pension would undergo an evaluation to see if that fighter deserves it or needs it or whatever. not just the WBC. And by the way, WBC hasn't put a penny in, so I like to throw that in. But this is what I said. People say, well, where's the money going to come from? Well, Antonio Tarver, $2,500 fine. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the WBC, fined him $20,000. The Nevada State Athletic Commission suspended Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. yesterday, and they're going to be fining him at least $300,000. I mean, right there, there's almost $325,000 that you could have put into this pension fund. And we're just talking about two fighters' names right now. All those kinds of money that comes in, those fines, those over the weight fines, that the above and beyond what the other fighter gets compensated, that revenue should be put into a fund that gets distributed for fighters and their after fight needs and stuff like after their fighting career needs and stuff like that. In addition to that, I believe that we could fund that very easily by putting a surcharge on every ticket sold for a professional boxing match in the United States, above and beyond what the promoter gets, a tax, if you will, that the governing state would be responsible into putting into the fund. So in other words, you're selling a ticket for $25. Well, now that ticket is $26. The promoter figures out that $25 will be enough for him and what his expenses were, blah, blah, blah. That $6, that $26, that $1 that gets added on to the end goes into the fund. So, hey, yes, you can nominate me to run this thing, and I will make sure that the right fighters get it. Speaking of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., yes, he was suspended yesterday. It was a procedure. There's no length of time put on it yet. There's no fine. They're saying that it looks like it's going to be about $300,000. They are going to be able to present a case before the Nevada State Athletic Commission, renders their final verdict and all that happy stuff. So all of that's happening right now in the state of Nevada. Now, this happens to be the second time that he's been caught with a banned substance. However, it is the first time it was an illegal substance, like this was pot, marijuana. And by the way, he made $3 million on that fight. I got a news piece that's very interesting from my man Curon. Now, you've heard me talk about Curon. Curon does so many things for this show behind the scenes, it's not even funny. Every time we need something converted or changed or size or blah, 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 Curon picks up the ball and runs. He's a great guy. He's been involved with this show for years and years and years. And he sent me he changed some audio for us, but he sends me an email yesterday of a news clip from the Sun over in England. And apparently, Amir Khan, and he's got a younger brother named Haroon Khan, they went out for the night. They were partying. They went to some clubs and stuff. And, they get out and they're getting ready to get in the car and go home late Sunday night, early Monday morning. And Amir Khan drives a Range Rover, which is a pretty pricey vehicle, especially if you're in the United States, you're spending over $150,000 for one of these for the model he has, even closer to about $160,000 according to reports. I mean, he's paying 100,000 pounds for that. But anyway, they're getting in the car, and 6 guys apparently come pulling up in another vehicle, block their exit so they couldn't get out with their own 4-wheel drive vehicle. 6 guys hop out of the car. One's got a pipe in his hand, and they're telling the Khan brothers to step away from the vehicle, that they're going to carjack the vehicle. Well, eyewitness reports and police and everything else describe what took place next. You could say what you want about Amir Khan and having a weak chin and everything else. That's only in the ring. because against a couple of thugs, he and his brother stood side by side, and I'm picturing this Batman scene, an old Batman scene, where they just beat the snot out of all 6 of these guys, knocking them out. They're dropping one by one. The police report that they got beaten up pretty badly, busted up, and nobody's pressing charges against each other. But I love this story, man. You know, could you imagine? You know, it's a bad day. Like if you're a carjacker and you know you're a thief and stuff like that. You know, it's a bad day when, you know, all of a sudden you decide to rob somebody, and next thing you know, the guy you choose is Amir Khan and his brother. You know, worse than that, you know, it's happened in the past where, you know, out comes was an old Jet linebacker, and his name was Carl Babalaskis, and he was huge. Same thing happened to him once in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. You know, they tried to rob him, and he's sitting in his car, you know, and he's like all crunched up in his car. Guy taps on the window, get out of your car. He gets out of his car. You know, this guy was like 6'7", you know, 300-pound killer, you know, and the criminal just, you know, the soap gun melted in his hand, if you know what I mean.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out the ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
You beat Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C. sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing Studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. show. He's Billy C., and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C. first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C. show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. And don't forget, if you don't have Fight Now on your sports channel lineup, you need to call your local television provider and tell them you want Fight Now right now. Pick up the phone and call. For all the information about the channel, you can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. But speaking of now,
Blast from the past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Top-ranking Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook.
Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by the International Boxing Organization, where their computerized ranking system is second to none. You can check out their website and their rankings at iboboxing.com. Features former world heavyweight champion and boxing Hall of Famer Gene Tunney. And joining us to give us the blast from the past like he does every week. He was here on Monday. I thought he overslept today. Alex Papali, what's up, man? You got me nervous.
No, I'm awake.
Oh, good
How you
man.
doing, Billy C?
Good man. Two early days in a row for you. What's going on? Must be the weather.
Yeah, feeling great.
Yeah, you're feeling great. Yeah. Gene Tunney, tell us about this guy, brother.
Yeah, Gene Tunney. His real name was James Joseph Tunney, and he was born May 25th, 1897 in New York City. He was known as the Fighting Marine. And that was because he was a combat Marine in World War I, part of the American Expeditionary Force. World War I, of course, absolutely brutal war. And Tunney was, it seems like that. From what I found, it seems like boxing was something he did in the Army, and he did win a light heavyweight title there. But his professional light heavyweight title came a few years later against Battling Levinsky. He was really an incredible, I think peerless is probably the word, boxer. Really, really smart, strategic, very fast, very good boxer. Of the day, I would say that that was the thing that made him different, was that he was a lot more of the classic type fighter. When he ends up fighting guys like Harry Greb or Jack Dempsey, I mean, that was what was tremendous, was the big contrast in style, that they were the rougher, more aggressive, ferocious style, and he was a much more classic, speedy science. That's what you're talking about when you're thinking of Gene Tunney, is the sweet science.
You must be thinking that he's a fellow Connecticutian. What do you call you guys from Connecticut? It's a Connecticutians? What is it? What's a person born in Connecticut? What do you call them?
A person from Connecticut.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there is. You can't.
There's no New Yorkers. It's not like a New Yorker or Floridian. It's just Connecticut, CT baby.
Yeah.
He's from Connecticut,
or like a Mainer.
Yeah, Mainer. Don't get me started on Maine.
Same thing like with Massachusetts. There's not a Massachusettsian.
Don't they just call them asses?
That's what, when I went to school in Maine, and that's what they know it as, Massachusetts.
Yeah, Maine is so hard. Maine, don't get me started on Maine. I had a horrific experience in Maine one time, eaten alive by man. Literally, the mosquitoes in Maine can carry men away and go to the mosquito lair. I don't know, man, but anyway, that should be a good comic book. That's right up your alley, man. That should be a good comic book character. A gigantic man-eating mosquito, from Maine. From Maine. Yeah, from Maine. Gene Tunney was one of those good-looking guys. He kept his hair neat and everything else. And a lot of people remember his fight, of course, with his two fights with Jack Dempsey. But before we talk about those, how about his 3 battles with Harry Greb, who seemed to have his number?
Yeah, that was really, I would say, where he got, the major respect. Because, I mean, when you look at his record, well, that's not to say that he hadn't fought any of it before that. I mean, he certainly had. He had fought Battling Levinsky to win the title. And but Harry Greb, I mean, Tunney was not an enormous man. He was 6 feet, a little over 6 feet tall. And, Greb, of course, had moved up. And when they met, they were at light heavyweight. And, the first time it was a brutal fight. But the thing about it was that it was not pretty. And, again, that's something about Tunney, is Tunney was the kind of fighter that he wanted to, outclass you. And he ran into a rough stylistic matchup when he fought a guy like Greb, who was more like the Darchinian type mold of guy, where, sometimes he's going to bull his way in. Sometimes he uses a shoulder. Sometimes he uses an elbow. Sometimes it's a butt. And the fight really was like that. Their first one was a really rough one.
Yeah, he sustained a cut. A lot of people think that the newspaper, they did fight one time. I believe it might have been their last fight, was a newspaper decision. A lot of people felt that Greb won that one. They were just, it was strange because Harry Greb was a middleweight, and this guy was so much bigger, but it was just styles make fights. And on his record, really, the only loss that Gene Tunney had, I mean, we're constantly talking in the Blast from the Past of, how great these fighters are. And one of our things is always like, well, look, they have X amount of losses. That doesn't make them a bad fighter. Well, here's a guy that, had 80 wins and only one loss. I mean, obviously, he was a good fighter.
Yeah, he sure was. And like I said, I mean, I think that's one of the things that happened with Greb. And this here, we see this sometimes in the Blast where you have two great guys fighting each other, and maybe it's not appealing to see the results, but it's at least decisive, and that was definitely the case because even though Tunney had lost the first one, he definitely got Greb's number. And one of the things they said about the third fight was, and this is from the Chicago Daily Tribune, it wasn't a contest that might have been called interesting. But see, that's the thing, is that it got to the point where they became less interesting because Tunney became more dominant. And they said that Tunney won it with his body attack, but that there were, it wasn't a Gotti Ward type fight. It was more strategic, and there were rough patches to watch.
By the way, Coach filled me in on what they call people from Connecticut. They're called rich. So in case you're wondering, one of the guys that's constantly or forever joined at the hip with Gene Tunney in boxing history, anyway, is Jack Dempsey. And before we talk about those fights, Jack Dempsey and Harry Greb was also an interesting matchup too, because Harry Greb supposedly beat the snot out of Jack Dempsey on several occasions. They sparred together and stuff like that, and that was a guy that Dempsey didn't want any part of. So I know we're not talking about Harry Greb, but it puts in perspective how great he was. I mean, amazing for him to. It
definitely does, and when you think about it, some of Harry Greb's greatest fights were 20 pounds less. In a weight class that was almost 20 pounds less.
Right, and you could argue the same thing about Stanley Ketchum. And that's some of the arguments you start getting into when friendly arguments when you start talking about all-time greats and why it's so important for us to keep these guys alive, because that's why I got asked a question earlier today, and it was obviously by a younger listener who wanted the dream matchup between the old-timer Marvin Hagler against, Floyd Mayweather. And it just makes me kind of laugh because I think of the old-timers as Stanley Ketchel, Harry Greb, and here we got Marvin Hagler already being in that category. But, when you start thinking of those elite fighters, how would a guy like, Harry Greb fighting a guy like Floyd Mayweather, or Stanley Ketchel fighting a guy like Floyd Mayweather? I mean, to me, when you look at the whole complete works, it's no comparison. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's what's intriguing about this was that this was, it was later in Greb's career and it was early in Tunney's, so you definitely have, an idea that, wow, this guy Tunney must be something, because he's, it's almost like they define each other in the matchups, and that's what great fighters do. Is that they kind of show where both guys are in the sense that Greb is still doing well in a division that's higher than where his best days were, and he's fighting past his prime, and it's at the same time Tunney is showing that, wow, he must be quite a boxer to be able to handle this crafty, rough-hewn guy like Harry Greb, who's fighting beyond his ideal weight class. And I mean, I did hear what you had said about the Mayweather thing and the Mayweather Hagler, and I mean, I think that's one of those things where it's just there's not enough info yet. I mean, you can't make a comparison like that. There's never been a fight that Mayweather has had at middleweight.
Exactly.
These guys went back and forth, up and down, you know.
And that's my whole point about Mayweather, not to get off the subject, but we can't fairly, I mean, I don't want to unfairly, but you can't do it even, fairly. You can't comment on his place in boxing history until his career is over. You need to let the career end. You need time to go by. You need to evaluate it and then make a decision. That's my opinion. But and it's hard. Like these dream matchups, they're always being brought up, and they're fun, and they're this and that. But realistically, you can't. And I would have been saying the same thing about Marvin Hagler. I mean, I'm just able to start talking about him in the grand scope of things, like because we've had so much time to really appreciate his career and his accomplishments and all of that. But back to Gene Tunney. It's interesting that he was called the Fighting Marine, and he had such a long career. He fought 13 years. He had such a successful career. But realistically, he only had 3 world heavyweight title fights. 2 were against Jack Dempsey. 1 was against Tom Heaney, and he retired at the top of his game, which is also a great feat, in my opinion, in the sport of boxing. When he fought Jack Dempsey the first time, that was a weird fight, Alex, because people, when Jack Dempsey hit the scene, people hated him. They hated Jack Dempsey. They called him a draft dodger and everything else. And over time, society, or at least the boxing fans, learned to like Jack Dempsey, and he became beloved. People love Jack Dempsey. Well, Gene Tunney comes on the scene, and they kind of love Gene Tunney, and he was the anti-Jack Dempsey as far as the press goes, because he was more of a boxer. He wasn't a brawler. He was a guy that did serve his country. He was known as the Fighting Marine. And then they had that first fight for Dempsey's world title. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that definitely, I think that's a good way to point out just the vast difference in how each guy was looked at by the press. That you're right. I mean, Tunney was more the clean-cut, straight-laced guy. He gave service to his country, whereas Dempsey was more, the Hollywood, furious ring style, but he also liked the hard living and fun stuff of the day. And so when they clashed, it was almost like these 2 versions of America coming together. The strict, sort of strategic, clean-cut boxing versus the furious, aggressive puncher. And that's where we had, and again, the crowd was enormous. I mean, we're talking about 100,000 people. I thought I had the number here. I think 104,943 people watched that at Soldier Field, which to me, that's just a mind-boggling number.
That was where
the famous long count happened. Where
no, wait, that's the rematch.
Oh, the rematch was that many?
Yeah, the rematch was Chicago. The first fight was in Philadelphia. The rematch was the long count. Yeah, we'll talk about the long count and why that happened. But the first fight was in Philly, and that was the fight where Tunney won the fight. I mean, he outboxed Jack Dempsey, and that was a learning experience for Jack Dempsey, and he couldn't stand it. He demanded the rematch. He wanted that rematch the next day, and he had to wait a whole year for it. So that first fight between Dempsey and Gene Tunney was a classic matchup between a boxer and a puncher. And it was at a time. Now consider the time, and it was the mid-20s. So you're getting, you still had a little bit left of that rough and tumble Jack Johnson style that was coming out of it. The Harry Grebs we mentioned, and we're not quite into the finesse part. But Gene Tunney was certainly the beginning. You could go back before him too to James Corbett. But these guys were the beginning of what we call today the true sweet science.
Right, and I think that like you said, this starts the tradition of boxer versus puncher. And I think already by this time you had the boxer had, of those matches, it was the boxer that was doing better. and this was another example. And just to go into that a little bit of what you had been talking about with Gotti, because skills, when you're talking about hand-to-hand combat, two guys stripped to the waist, you got to bring something into the ring. And when you bring in a lot of strategy and the sweet science, you're not unarmed. Now, granted, if you got punching power like a Jack Dempsey and the ability to keep throwing like he did with the pressure and the fury, it's not exactly like you're unarmed. But, if you ask me, I always want to go with the skills guy. And already by this time, we had seen Jim Corbett skill John L. Sullivan. You had seen Jack Johnson being outskilling Jim Jeffries, and now here we have Gene Tunney outskilling Jack Dempsey. So yeah, it was the beginning of the plus side for the boxers of the boxers versus punchers matchups.
Yeah, it started to really define the sweet science to where we know it now. I mean, you could go all the way back. You and I both know firsthand from the 1800 era, they called it the sweet science, but it certainly wasn't sweet compared to, what we see today. But that first Jack Dempsey fight was for Dempsey's title, and Gene Tunney won. And they had a rematch almost exactly 1 year, 1 day short of 1 year to the day. And that was the one in Soldier Field that had the record gate and everything else. And that one, the new rule had just been implemented in the state of Illinois about going to your neutral corner. And that's a very important part of that long count situation because Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey both agreed to the rule change. They were both informed of the rule change. But in Jack Dempsey's own words was he was all for it. He wanted it. He supported it. He voted for it, the whole nine. But in the heat of the action, he forgot about it. And as a result, that count didn't start until he went to his neutral corner and the long count. Well, tell us all about that.
Yeah, he ended up getting a much longer count than a lot of people thought that he should have. And now the controversy, of course, comes that Tunney, to his dying days, felt that he could have gotten up sooner. But he was sort of observing what was going on, and like a smart, strategic boxer, figured, well, I'm going to keep sitting here until, I get the count, and then I'll stand. But, yes, it definitely, for Dempsey fans, will rage forever that, it was something unfair, and the referee refused to start the count. So and again, the clips of it are grainy, and you can't really, even when you try to count it off with your, just sort of do 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, because of, like we were talking about on Monday, the way the film flows, it's not exactly seconds. If you did a stopwatch, I'm sure it wouldn't come out to actual seconds, but it certainly looks longer than, counting to 10. And that was the raging, the controversy that, he was literally knocked out or should have been knocked out. But that was really the only round that Dempsey won in that fight.
Yeah, and he admits that in his own autobiography, the one he wrote with his stepdaughter, and he admits that it was one of those dramatic finishes that he was felt like he was stuck in a rut, that it was the continuation of the first fight. He didn't have an answer, and then everything just clicked. He hurt Tunney and went after him, and complained about the long count. I happen to be looking at a still photograph of the Tunney-Dempsey 2 fight, and it shows Dempsey being, basically the referee jumping up, waving Dempsey to his neutral corner, Dempsey looking at him and like backing up, taking a back step towards the neutral corner, and Gene Tunney already on one knee, looking at the referee. So, I mean, I'm not so sure that, he was wrong. I'm not so sure how hurt he really was. If the count would have ended sooner, I think he had his faculties together and he would have been able to stand up. And when he did finally stand up and continue, he outboxed and stayed away from Dempsey and went on to win the fight. And, it brings us to a couple of long counts that took place after this one. One, in my opinion, Mike Tyson against Buster Douglas, that was a long count. Mike Tyson should have, I swear he should have gotten that knockout win. And then, of course, the one with Lucien Boutte up in Canada. That one, too, is arguable. But the bottom line...
Oh, yeah, that Lucien Boutte with, what was that, Librado Andrade? That one, was outrageous.
Well, you know what is different about the Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey situation was that there was really one sanctioning body. There was one set of rules. They did implement a new rule, so it's a little, you put an asterisk next to it. But later on, like especially with the Lucien Boutte one, these sanctioning bodies who I'm constantly crying about, not giving us continuity in the sport of boxing, are to blame because they all have different rules. Some of them will have the rule that that the timekeeper picks up the count. Once it's ruled a knockdown, the timekeeper starts the count. The referee gets the fighter in a neutral corner, looks at the timekeeper, picks up the count, and then continues on with the count. And then other sanctioning bodies say, no, that the referee will pause the timekeeper if he's sending a fighter to a neutral corner and he stopped at 3 and it takes him 2 or 3 seconds to get that fighter to the neutral corner, he picks up at 4. So I mean, even those are conflicting. So that really is just another reason why we need continuity. But
and I think that is the way that, like, the most recent, when there's big pay-per-views, HBO will go in the dressing room and they'll put the mic, between the referee and the fighters, where he'll give them the instructions in the dressing room, and then any added concerns they'll tell them then. And Kenny Bayless does a great job of, explaining like everything he's going to do. And I think he does say, I'm going to, if in case of a knockdown, I'll put you into a neutral corner if you're the one scoring the knockdown. If you drift out of the corner, I'll stop the count and pick up the count again after you're back in the corner. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think that there is, like you said, it does vary state to state, or maybe Bayless is reading the rule exactly. I'm a little curious about that.
Yeah, I know that it state to state, commission, definitely it's different, and also sanctioning body. Whoever's in charge, especially if it's a world title fight. In that case, with Lucien Boutte and Librado Andrade, it was the IBF. And that was one of the first things I looked into. And yes, according to the IBF rules, the referee has the official count, not the timekeeper. So, which is strange because they always look at the timekeeper to initially pick up the count. You know what I mean? And then I guess from that point they can pause it or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember is that, in the ring at this time, the man in charge. I think that's one of those overarching, just like protect yourself at all times, is like the go-to rule when all else fails. That's the same thing with a referee, is he's the man in charge. So just like, I think that's why we ended up with the call we did for the Dawson Hopkins thing. Because remember, even though replay showed something else, we went with what the referee said. Until the California State Athletic Commission reviewed it, and then they changed their mind.
Right, which, I mean, how many?
That's a wonderful reason.
Yeah, how many fight results would have changed prior to 1995? When you had the technology to go back and review and think and contemplate and see, what other reasons might change your opinion. I mean, it's again, they have never, go back in the history of any other sport. I don't recall if they've ever went back and changed the score for a football game, a baseball game, a hockey game, a basketball game, regardless of the situation, so only in boxing. But anyway, great job. Fun talking about Gene Tunney. I wish we could talk a little more.
Well, and this is a great example of one of the things of why the Blast is so much fun is that they give you a sort of way to talk about the sport today as well, because so many things that have happened will happen again, and just the names change, and that's a good example. Is think about that just with long counts. I mean, this is the one that's probably the most famous, but it's not the only one where there's been controversy.
Oh, come on. Yeah, sometimes I've heard the referees, and it's like 1, 2,
Right.
and then the other ones is like
really not seconds.
No. Well, it's a count. That's what they call it. But then I've clearly heard other ones, especially now everyone listening and watching, you take this one and remember what I'm saying. You'll hear a referee sometimes, and I think they get caught up in the moment, especially when a fighter's on his verge of getting back to his feet, right? Like it goes exactly, and it happens all the time, right? You got the guy, he's down. It's like 1, 2, 3, right? He's up to 4, and he's on his feet, and all of a sudden it's like 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like, wait a minute, come on, when did the music start? But anyway, Gene Tunney, our blast from the past today. Former world heavyweight champion. He was his career record was 80 wins, 48 coming by knockout. He only had that one loss with Harry Greb, who cut him up really bad. They said he looked like he was in a fight with a blender. He had 3 draws. He was only 6 foot tall, 77-inch reach, 597 rounds as a pro with a 56% knockout ratio. Hall of Famer, former world champion. Ironically enough, if you look him up under BoxRec, they have him listed as a light heavyweight, which is pretty ironic to me.
And that's another one of those things that, like what Tony Treem has pointed out when he did his all-time great heavyweights. He reminded people that a guy like James Jeffries had just this incredible record that people can't forget. It's the same thing with Gene Tunney, just an incredible record. Ibro lists him number 4 all-time at 175. And number 11 all-time at heavy. And Bert Sugar has him number 13 in boxing's greatest fighters.
Well, you know what? His record speaks for it. His level of opposition speaks for it. Unfortunately, we need to keep guys like this alive, and that's what I love about this segment, my man.
Right on, baby.
All right, well, listen, I know you got a busy week, so have some fun and send me pictures. I love them girls down there.
Oh, I will.
All
yeah,
right.
It's Comic-Con week. It's that time of year. It's going to be a blast.
Sounds...
And you got an awesome fight this weekend, too. I mean, I think it's a doubleheader that's, you can't resist, but I'm looking forward more to the Donaire-Nishioka fight. That's going to be a thriller.
I think that other one is going to be just as good. I love them both. Make sure you tune in. We're going to have a post-fight show, and we'd love
cool.
to.
That's
so we'd love to have you come on, man.
All right, we'll do.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Take care, Billy C.
That's my man Alex Papali doing a blast from the past and doing a fine job like he always does. Hey, I got to take a break. When I come back, we got more boxing talk. We are scheduled to have Joe Santoliquido. We'll have him for a little bit. We'll see if he's awake. We'll check it out all in about 2. I said all in about 2.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
Mike Tyson looked like he put on some pounds. He was fat. He went into McDonald's and he just said to them, hey, give me 6 of everything on the menu. He put on 2 watches and covered 2 time zones. I'm talking fat here. Got on a scale the other day and it said, come on, one of you guys got to get off. Last thing I heard is that he jumped into the ocean and he left a ring around the continent. He's fat.
Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Talking Boxing with Billy C.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, Talking Boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
St. Jimmy's coming down across the alleyway, up on the boulevard like a zip gun on parade. Lights on the silhouette, he's just a buttonette, coming at you on the count of 1.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching this on the Fight Now television channel, and if you don't have Fight Now on your sports channel lineup, you need to call your local television provider and tell them you want Fight Now right now. That's what you got to say. I want Fight Now right now. Just pick up the phone and call them. You know who your TV provider is. You pay the bill every month. Tell them you want Fight Now right now for all the information about the channel. You can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. And speaking of now, hey, who's more opinionated than Joe Santoliquito?
Tons of athletes that have asthma, and they deal with it, pal. Deal with it. The hell with you, and the hell with you, and the hell with you. Until I see him enter the ring, where there's no jiggle to his wiggle. The man boobs aren't flopping all over the place. That's a joke. And it kind of cracks me up, this trash that they put on pay-per-view.
Joe Santoliquito. Who does it better than Joe Santoliquito? He joins us with us right now. What's up, brother? Are you there? Oh, you're not here. I could have sworn we had him. Oh, we had him and we lost him. So, great phone system, Billy C. But we'll see if we can't get him back on the line here. We're going to have to do something with that system. That's for sure. And we got you back now, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
I don't know what the hell happened there. I know you probably heard us, but we even played your little intro and everything.
Yeah, I like that. I'm getting, I've grown used to the,
Yeah, every time I hear that, I can hear it 100 times and I laugh every time, and then that was also, that clip.
And it sounds thick.
I know, it sounds like you took a deep breath first, But, it's funny because we had been talking, that whole little clip, I think, came on a show one time. We were talking about Chris Arreola, and we were all so fed up with Chris Arreola with the 260 pounds. Yeah, I know. That's what you were saying. And it was a pay-per-view, so that's where that whole rant came. But, hey, there's a couple of really good fights this weekend I want to get into. But before I ask you your thoughts on those fights, I wanted to ask you a couple other things. First, it was announced yesterday that Antonio Tarver's ban, he tried to get it lifted. He was sentenced to 1 year suspension for testing positive for steroids. And, he tried to, go and have the decision overturned and what have you. And they upheld it. They voted 4-1. Well, my question is this. I think that he's crazy to stay on this bandwagon swearing that he didn't do it when both of his tests came out positive, and I think it's time to just do your time and shut up. I mean, what's your thoughts on this for him sticking around swearing that it's wrong, that the results were wrong?
I think there's more to it, and just what I mentioned a second ago, I think losing his job at Showtime is a big deal. He did a credible job for them. Actually, I'll tell you what, I was getting to like him. I always liked Tarver. I had an opportunity maybe 8-9 years ago to spend some good quality time with Tarver in Atlantic City. We did a ring interview with him, coupled with a photo shoot, and he is expressive, he's intelligent, he did bring something to the table, as they say, and he was able to break down a fight and communicate that to an audience in a not only an entertaining way, but an educated way, and it's something that I liked about him. I think that's where his the dominant way in sticking with his guns and maintaining his innocence. Well, obviously, the tests have proven that he's not. But I think that's a real big reason, if not maybe the reason, Bill, why he's maintained his. He's trying to maintain his innocence.
I agree with you. Not only is he accurate in his job, I think he does a fantastic. I was never a big fan of him as a boxer, but as a color guy, I think he's great. And I think what I like about him compared to some of the other former boxers that are in these positions is not only is he accurate, not only is he intelligent, all the accolades you gave him, but he doesn't talk about things in the third person either. He's giving it to you in perspective from an expert, but he doesn't have to say Antonio Tarver would have knocked him out like this, and I'm not going to point out who says that, but you know what I mean. But he could have said.
Maybe his punch has something to do with the guy that does say that.
Yeah, no, I know. But listen, he could have said something that, and I agree with you about the Showtime thing, and he really misses that. I think he realizes that was his biggest.
That's his future.
Yeah,
That's his future.
And that was my argument of why did he bother getting back in the ring? He had such a bright future with Showtime and whoever else. I mean, to me, he makes good money at Showtime. There was no reason for him to do this. But the truth of the matter is this: he could have kind of put the fire out and maybe even saved his job if he would have come out and said something like, I wasn't aware of the steroid. It was in something else. It was in a supplement, whatever. Yes, it was in my system. I screwed up. Whatever the case is, it's over. I'm going to do my time and let it go away. That, even though it's an excuse, it's more acceptable. He's kind of admitting guilt. What he's doing now is swearing that both A and B tests were wrong and somebody's out to get him type of a thing, which I think is making it worse.
Well, help me out here, too, Bill. I don't think this is the first time he's been caught.
No, I think it was. At least since they were testing for it. I mean, it was the first time that he had ever been caught. And because
I know there was a fight where Roy Jones was caught, and both he and the fighter he was going up against were caught, and quote unquote at the time they didn't exactly know what to do with the results because they didn't know. It might have been. My memory's hazy with this. It may have happened either a fight in Chicago, in Illinois, but there was another time where Roy Jones was caught and his opponent was caught, and I distinctly know that. I don't know the specifics of that, but it's a shame. It's sorry for Antonio Tarver, but they're obviously. I mean, today in this modern day of testing, rarely does anything slip by them, and good for them that he got caught. I mean, we don't have to turn around and say alleged. He tested positive.
Yeah, and speaking of testing positive, the other guy that is set for his hearing is Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. It seems they haven't laid down any suspension or length of time or anything like that. He is suspended. It's not been defined how long, nor is defined, but they're leaking out that it sounds like it's going to be a 6-month and $300,000 fine. What's your thoughts on that, real quick?
Well, good. My feelings on Chavez Jr. I gave him serious respect points for what amounts to one punch, and putting Sergio making what was basically, if you saw one round, you saw them all, and that type of fight against Sergio Martinez. But landing that one punch made that fight exceptionally exciting in the end. And I gave him points for at least, putting himself out there. He took a beating in that fight. He was pounded all over the place. Maybe there's a reason why he was able to absorb so much punishment. He was high as a kite. I'm exaggerating. There's no truth to the fact that he went into the ring in that condition. But there was a lot of things there. There's a lot of telltale signs of what was going on. The other thing, too, Bill, is it says a lot. It really reeks of a lack of character on Chavez Jr.'s part. Again, I kept on mentioning, and it just bothered me to no end. Again, all due respect to Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman and Roy Jones, that HBO broadcast crew. Love them to death. I think they're tremendous in a lot of different ways. But that night, in my opinion, they were just trying to look for reasons, into mentioning the old man. And Bill, let's be realistic. And you gave Chavez Jr. a lot more respect going into that fight than I did. Like I said, he gained respect points, considerable respect points from me for that one punch and making that fight exciting. That was all wiped away when it came out that he tested positive for marijuana. Granted, marijuana is by no means a PED, but it says that, something, I got a big fight coming up, and the hell with everything else. With the fight fans, with the people that have faith and trust in me,
with Bob Arum, with everything. You know, the heck with it all, the hell with it all. And I would even throw like two in there too with all that, because he just, you know, it was just so stupid to turn around and do what he did. It was stupid. It was lazy. And you wonder why he blew off training the way he did. You wonder why he's running around with his pink pinkies there and his little pinky hanging out. You know, eating breakfast at some odd hours in the morning. A lot of things now. You can answer. You can answer. You know, this guy's a little bit off. Doesn't it seem like you're watching the HBO 24/7 with this? He just kind of spit in everybody's face. Is what he did. You know, in terms of his lack of respect for himself and his profession. That is an absolute joke. I mean, what respect points and what respect he had built in my mind, that just got wiped away.
Yeah, well, what gave it away in that fight about the pot thing is, they offered him a bottle of water. He said, no, I'll take the chips, man. Give me the chips. But listen, we got a couple of good fights this weekend, and we're already running out of time. This time, it really flies. But real quick, I'm going to name a couple of matchups. Just give me your quick thoughts. In the heavyweight division, and, I know it's not a major network, but David Price, who's an up-and-coming British fighter, a big guy, 6'8", the whole nine. He's taking on Audley Harrison. I think it's an important fight for the heavyweight division, maybe not for U.S. heavyweight, but I think it gives us a good look at a division that may be changing when and if the Klitschko's decide to hang him up. What's your thoughts on that fight?
I'll lean in that fight towards Price. I mean, I've gone way back with Audley for a number of things on a number of occasions. He's tried to resurrect his career a number of times. He's another guy that's lacked discipline. He's been exactly what his nickname is. He's been a fraud.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's definitely had many chances. He's the Freddy Krueger of the heavyweight division, that's for sure. Two huge fights, man. I mean, let's just get right into these two big fights now that time is becoming an issue. First, the co-main, which may steal the show, may become the fight of the year, at least if we all had to take a guess based on their previous performances and their style. Mike Alvarado against Brandon Rios. Brandon Rios is moving up to the junior welterweight division, although he's fought at that weight before not making weight in the lower weight class. But he's technically moving up, fighting a bigger guy for the first time. How do you see this one going?
I'll lean towards Rios. I like his chin. I like his power. It is exactly what you said. It was. I mean, and getting my predictions together for a couple of media outlets, one of which is ringtv.com. That's exactly what I wrote. That it's a fight of the year candidate, a potential fight of the year candidate. And let's see, if we could see the Brandon Rios we're used to seeing, not the one that flubbed around. I believe it was a few fights ago where he got a break. Hopefully, this Brandon Rios. And I think so far this morning, the operative word being discipline and focus, which we found, between Chavez Jr. and Audley Harris.
Oh, we just lost Joe. Let's see if we get him back here. That was abrupt, huh? That was a quick disconnect on for Joe. We'll see if we can't get him back. That was his phone just a ringing. He's still talking. He's still talking on the other line. He doesn't know that we lost him. Are you there now? Yeah, we lost you there, right in the middle. You finish your thought.
Yeah, and the referee is, he's been guilty of losing focus and concentration in the past and discipline. But I'll give Rios points for this because I feel he knows what's at stake, and he knows he's going to be put out there. He's going to be on a large stage, and this is an opportunity for him to learn shine. I think he will.
The main event on that is, I think, really is going to put Nonito Donaire in perspective of how good or maybe not he is. We all had this guy rated high and everything else, and his last couple of fights have just, although they've all been wins for him, it just seems like he's lacking something. I don't know if it's a quality opponent or the right size opponent, or I'm not sure what it is. But I'm expecting a really good fight against Tokishika Nikashoka this weekend. What's your thoughts on this fight? Is it going to be a test for Donaire?
Yeah, it will be. I honestly and fairly, I mean, other than maybe some YouTube clips, I don't know a whole lot about Nikishoka. I know this is a fight that Donaire has wanted for some time. I've spoken to him about it. I've spoken to his wife Rachel about it. Who's going to be the queen of the ball again Saturday night? They can't get enough camera shots of her, in my opinion. But I'll leave other thoughts to myself there in reference to her. All positive. But this is his time, and he's been. It's funny, Bill, and I know you harp on this, and it's a favorite topic of yours. And in this case, I certainly am banging the hammer in backing this up in terms of where promotion is today and how fighters are being promoted. This guy's been terribly underpromoted. I mean, this is the first time. I mean, you figure with his talent and his ability, he's a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter. He should have had a number of pay-per-views by now, and he's had nothing. He's gotten nothing. I mean, help me out here. I don't think he's been promoted nowhere near as well as he should have been. And I know there was a time, and I know that was that was very high on his plate, very high on his list when he debated and actually signed with Golden Boy, and then they had that mess, and then finally he went to court, and all the mismatch got out, and he wound up, found out that he was still obligated, contractually obligated to Top Rank, and Aram put up a little bit and to re-up Nonito Donaire, but this is his night. That will be his night. It'll be his time to shine, and I think finally I think he will. I agree that to a point he has not been put in with the kind of competition that'll press him, and I think we're going to see parts of him that we may not have seen before. There's times where he's looked spectacular in the past, where he's really stepped up. And this is one of those occasions where I think he has no other choice but to step up. Because he's been, to his credit, and in fairness to him, he's been banging his own drum. He can't come right out and say the things I've been saying on your air, but I got a strong feeling he's felt it, that he's been under, shortchanged and under-promoted. And again, like I said, this is going to be his time to shine. So, speaking of which, I got to thank you in a roundabout way for this morning.
Well, before you thank me, let me just say this: I don't disagree with you. I think that I think you're right, and I think that it was Top Rank. Forget the Golden Boy issue, but I think Top Rank was banking on Nonito Donaire to be the next Manny Pacquiao, and I think they had him on the shelf too long, and the way things are dragging out, I think he's making, Bob Arum and Top Rank are making a mistake, and I think you're right. They should. It's time to get Nonito Donaire in that front spot, or at least move him up and kick up the promotion for him. They've
screwed up. They've blatantly screwed up.
I think
they must be realistic.
I think
there's a number of chinks in the Pacquiao armor. Manny Pacquiao is not Manny Pacquiao. That's done. That ship sailed.
Well, like I'm saying, I think that you made a valid point with Golden Boy. I think that did slow things down. But one thing I want to say, and then we got to run, but the one thing I wanted to say about Donaire and his lackluster performances that I think he's done is he's also moved up in 2 weight classes very rapidly, and maybe that's indicative of why he's not as dominating, So I think we're definitely gonna see this weekend, because Nikishoka is no joke of an opponent, but arguably, one of the best opponents he's faced in his career. So we'll get to see. So go ahead. What are you thanking me for, man? I'm dying to know now.
Well, I'm going. I got an invitation-only part of a roundtable this morning, and if it wasn't for you waking my tail up this early on a Wednesday, I don't know if I would have been able to make it. But I was in New York today to speak to Adrian Broner. It's an HBO invitation to speak to Adrian Broner. We'll see where Adrian is at this stage in his career. Obviously, he's the next one that they're trying to promote as the next superstar. I think, obviously, and certainly, by the way HBO is dealing with this, they are trying to paint him out to be, in my opinion, possibly, in that mode to fill Floyd Mayweather's shoes, because you're looking at a situation where Mayweather's 34 or 35. Pacquiao, though he may be 32, 33, is a little bit younger than Mayweather. Let's also be realistic. I mean, the two guys that have carried the sport for the last 4 or 5 years are getting older. Both Klitschko's are in their, well, literally is 40. Vladimir, I believe, he's certainly past the age of 35. He's in his late 30s. So you have young and coming fighters like a Broner. I am not going to put the superstar tag on him yet. He has to beat somebody before I turn around and put that superstar tag on him.
I
but
agree.
He's certainly being groomed for that status, because it wouldn't be an invitation only. I mean, there's a handful of us that are going up that are going to be talking to him. You know, us so-called, prime guys. It's, I don't know. I wouldn't even. I don't know if I'd even call myself a prime guy, but certain select media being invited to bask in the glow of Adrian Broner today, and it's kind of, as I'm talking to you two now, it's kind of a gray, hazy day on a Wednesday morning, but you got my juices flowing, and I don't think I'm going to be falling asleep on the bus ride up.
Sounds good, my man. Well, listen, we got to go. Give Max my best, and tell him I said, hey, we tried to hook up when I was out in Vegas, and our schedules just took us in two different directions. But hopefully next time I'll get to hang with Max and get him on the show and stuff. So give him my best, and we'll look forward to you next week.
Okay, very, very good, Bill.
All right. Take care, Joe. That's my man, Joe Santaliquido, and giving his thoughts on the big fights this weekend, and also Tarver. It's interesting what he just told us about the HBO and the sit-down, the roundtable that they're going to do with Adrian Broner. I'm a little shocked. I'm looking at a comment in the chat room by my man who did the comment, Dave. Dave Murphy. He's being groomed to take Floyd's bad boy spot, and I agree with that statement that Murph just made. If I'm HBO, why aren't we? I say we. If I'm HBO, why don't they, look at a guy like, Andre Ward? I mean, let's be fair. I don't know what sells more. Maybe the bad boy guy sells more than the good guy. Maybe the guy with the black cowboy hat sells better than the guy with the white cowboy hat. I'm not so sure. But when I put my boxing purist hat on, isn't it better to align ourselves with a champion that's a better role model, things that you can kind of be proud of? I mean, listen, let's give Broner credit. He's a young fighter. He's showing us a lot of talent. He's funny. I think he's funny. I think his mannerisms and his blatant copycat stuff on Floyd is actually funny. I think he does it to be funny. The brushing of the hair. It's funny, but he's so far been clean. He doesn't give us the impression that he's doing illegal things. He stays out of trouble and stuff like that. And as long as he maintains that, then that's okay. But it just seems to me when you look at a young fighter like him, he looks like the potential of being aligned with somebody that may have some trouble down the road or whatever. It might not be a smart move. When you look at Andre Ward, this is a guy that's clearly on the clean path. He's clearly a guy that is a role model that I think if you have to roll the dice with young fighters, and you're trying to pick a guy that might be a good role model, and you don't want to pick a guy that might turn into a negative character or a negative model for youth. I think, the odds have to be with Andre Ward. But, nonetheless, I can't argue. I mean, Broner is definitely an up-and-coming guy, and I hope he does well. I think he's going to have trouble when he starts stepping in with his next fight and the fight after. I think the real Broner is going to come out, and I just hope he does do that. He fights the best available, and he doesn't copy Floyd in that regard, looking for the easiest opposition.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question is being brought to us by Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, New York. Give them a call today, 718-797-2872. That's 718-797-2872. Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, New York. Tell them Billy C sent you and demand a Billy C discount. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question. We're getting a lot of answers, and a lot of people are picking the wrong answer. Now, I'm not going to, well, they're all picking the wrong answer because we still need a winner, but I'm not going to say which one is wrong because everyone seems to think maybe when you Google it, that's what's coming up or whatever. But a lot of incorrect answers, and I appreciate all the people that are trying. Keep trying. And whether you're listening to this show as a replay or a rebroadcast or a podcast or maybe you stumbled across it or whatever, always answer the questions. Don't assume somebody has it. The question is, when was the first World Championship fight televised? When was the first World Championship fight televised? So I need to know when and who the fight was. And email me. If you're the first one to get it right, you're going to win a couple of packs of cards. Email me, Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com, courtesy of Pugilistica.com. We got some unopened boxing cards. When was the first World Championship fight televised? Email me if you know the correct answer. I gave a big hint. It was a substantial thing. It was a substantial fight for television. So, and what was to follow after this. So, very important. When was the first World Championship fight televised? Who was it? When was it? Where was it? All that stuff. Email me, Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanero and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That is Campanero and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. Let Campanero and Tomkovich knock out your legal problem. 845-221-4099. Tell them Billy C sent you, and then I'll pick up the consultation fee. Give them a call today, Campanero and Tomkovich, 845-221-4099. On this day, October 10th, way back in 2003. You know, I know that's almost 10 years ago, but it seems like yesterday. On this day, October 10th, 2003, Silvio Branco knocks out Mahdi Sadnaun in the 11th round to win the WBA World Light Heavyweight title, and that took place on this day, October 10th, in 2003, in France. Took place in France. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. I got one more thing to say. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Well, there's only one channel. It's called the Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider and tell them you want the Fight Now channel added to your sports channel lineup. It's that simple. Pick up the phone and call them. For all the information about the channel, guess where you can find it? You got it. On their website, baby. www.fightnow.com. See you all tomorrow. Ciao, baby.